I just had a really important thought. Prior to me recording the video that I titled A New Start, the day before I recorded that video, I was a lot of the day in just a rage, particularly in the evening. I was on the phone to my grandmother. I was in a rage when I was on the phone with her. And my wife as well. I was just in a rage, and it was just like, I called people because it was like a cry for help. I just couldn't manage my emotions. So I would just scream. And then I did apologize. And just because and said I was upset. But that day was a turning point for me, because I realized that two things I realized. Firstly, that the anger was just poison for me. And the second thing I realized was that after the rage, I wouldn't say screaming and becoming aggressive and just exhausting myself in a rage was why the anger went. The anger would have passed anyway, even if I had just remained silent the whole time. If I had just sat in meditation or gone for a walk, it would have passed. I know it would have passed. It would have passed in a different way, but it would have passed. The one thing I've learned from this, though, although that's not a healthy way to channel feelings by just exhausting the energy that's been built up by anger, just exhausting that into a rage, is not helpful. The one thing I learned is that I laid in bed that evening. I remember I was on the phone to my wife, and there was a real pleasantness in feeling anesthetized almost. I felt peaceful, I felt calm, I felt kind of tired, I felt relaxed. My mind wasn't jumping anymore. It was just like I was just ready to say goodnight, and I was just like, yeah. I was just upset, and it was like there was a real release. And I think, because I recall listening to this jiu-jitsu fighter speak about, he just loved being anesthetized, feeling like he's been anesthetized after a fight. And I suppose this makes sense, that yes, walking meditation is great, sitting meditation is great, Buddhism is great. However, I think that there's something else that I need to integrate into all of that, which is intense physical exertion, because I still remember the way that jiu-jitsu fighter said that. He said, I just love feeling anesthetized. And I think he could have been from a background of, like, a good background where he didn't have to, like, he didn't experience like abuse, trauma, all of that. Probably it wouldn't have been, it may well have been, because often if there's too much trauma, it just destroys someone, so they're unable to do anything. If there's no trauma, then you can sometimes end up with people who are just, I don't even know how to say this, boring would maybe be unfair. Just there's always something people are running away from. If people have nothing to run away from, if no one has been through any trauma, then there's nothing, I don't know, they're less of a fighter. So they tend to, I don't know, I wouldn't say they achieve less, but then again, I know someone who had little trauma in his life, and I think he achieved quite a lot. I don't know, it depends. I think trauma can break some people and then for some people it becomes like calloused and they become stronger. And then some people probably who have no trauma just screw about with their life because they haven't had anything that's helped them build character. And some people that have had no trauma probably go on to achieve great things. So I've digressed a bit, but the point I'm trying to make is that I think there's something in the idea that traumatized people may need intensity for their brain to function in an optimal way. By intensity, intense physical exertion. What tends to happen is with traumatized people is the intensity comes out in unhealthy ways. An intense rage, hypersexuality could explain why traumatized people end up becoming porn stars. Hyperaggression, to the extent where they break the law or they harm people or in extreme circumstances kill a lot of people. So trauma, hurt people can easily hurt other people. But if that propensity for, I think the word is propensity, for intensity is channeled into a physical outlet, then I think it's anxiety disorders as well. So I was diagnosed with an anxiety disorder, generalized anxiety disorder. So anxiety needs possibly a more intense, this is an intense exertion. I mean, this is to do with brain structures. This is to do with mind. This is to do with brain structure. This is to do with hormonal balance. This is to do with environment. This is to do with family. This is history. This is trauma. There's so many factors involved in this. But I also remember what Joe Rogan said in one of his podcasts, where he said that the reason why he chooses to do intense, hard things, like he does the jiu-jitsu, and he likes to let out that rage, you can say, on the punch bag, in the dojo, in the gym, through the jiu-jitsu. And he said the reason why he does that, the main reason why he does that, is so he is able to sit down in his podcast, and I think the word he said was be normal with people. I don't know if the word was normal, but it was like a word that kind of maybe meant normal. He meant enabling him to be calm, something like along the lines of be calm with people, be able to listen to people, be able to be civil and have patience, because he's let out all the aggression in the external outlet. If he didn't do that, I reckon he probably wouldn't be able to do the podcast. He'd come into the podcast and he'd be more reactive and he'd be more tense. He wouldn't be relaxed. He's a relaxed guy, Joe Rogan, and I think like in his podcast, he's calm, he's cool, he's collected. He's very good at managing his emotions, it seems, and just managing his life. Now, I don't really like the idea of hunting animals. However, I don't really like the idea of factory farming either. That's kind of worse. In the sense with more animals being killed. But so I wouldn't be able to do that personally. I can't hunt, and he calls it just dipping his toe in nature, that they'd have a violent death anyway. So I don't agree with him on everything, but that was pure wisdom right there, what I heard. He says, I do my physical activity, I do the jiu-jitsu, I let it all out there so I can calm and be civil or normal or calm with you guys. And I'm thinking maybe this is what I'm missing, because I've done over the last few years, I haven't been consistent with it all the time, but I've had consistent periods of, say, like a week where I've done walking, sitting meditation every day. I've made progress. Definitely my life has gotten better, but socially I'm still like sometimes excessively talkative, excessively anxious, not always the best listener. I don't always gauge the situation right. Maybe that's an autistic trait, although I've been told that I'm very neurotypical, that I have no, under no stretch of the imagination am I autistic. Definitely not. every mental health professional has told me that. The only person that's hinted at possible mild Asperger's is someone who wasn't even qualified. But all the people who are qualified have told me that I do not have autism. If I'm up for a second, if someone wanted to, I don't have the money to pay for it, but if someone wanted to do a assessment on me and give me further information, if I was diagnosed with it by a professional, I would accept it. In a way, it would be easier if that was the case, because then it would explain a fair bit, explain why I've never really wanted to really try to have lots of friends. I mean, I did want to have friends, but I don't like big. So I can feel suffocated in a lot of social situations. Anyway, so that's a side note, but yeah, the meditation helps a lot. But I'm thinking these things keep sticking in my mind. Like one YouTuber said, live in an extreme way. Sometimes you have to take drastic action to get drastically different results. You have to take extraordinary action to get extraordinary results. If you keep doing the same thing, to quote Greg Plitt, you're still left with the same bowl of shit. Rest in peace, Greg Plitt. He said that once, and then another YouTuber said you got to do extreme, and then Joe Rogan said that, and then that jiu-jitsu fighter, I think it was the Gracie, one of the Gracie brothers, said I like being anesthetized. And I think that largely, it's people from traumatic, difficult backgrounds often become martial artists, UFC fighters, wrestlers, all of this. I mean, look at Bruce Lee, had a difficult background, suffered a lot of prejudice. I'm pretty sure Conor McGregor has been through some trauma. Definitely Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury has been through a lot of trauma. He struggled with mental health. Now, I'm like way about, I don't know, probably I've lost weight recently, about 10 stone. I'm no fighter. I'm no martial artist, anything like that. And I'm probably never going to be, but I can still take a leaf out of their book, as it were, take wisdom from them and think, okay, I'm not going to do their level of intensity, because I'll probably just end up really badly hurting myself. But I could do as intense as I can manage, that will get me to a place where it's intense enough to the point where I can feel that. I don't know if the word is anesthetized, but in the evening particularly, I get stressed, and poor sleep fucks my head up as well. If I can just get to the point where I can feel like that every evening, just kind of anesthetized, where you're just lying down, you can't even move, you can't even get up to brush your teeth, you can't even get up. When you're feeling like that, that's you're not gonna have trouble falling asleep. You know that the anxiety is drastically reduced, the anger is drastically reduced, the uncomfortable feelings in the body have gone, and then it allows change to happen. And when all of those uncomfortable, when you're more comfortable in the body, and all the uncomfortable feelings have gone because you've physically exerted, and you've matched the intensity to what you need, then socially I can be a lot better. Because what tends to happen is now, for example, as well, it comes out vocally, and there's only so much that it is helpful for me to talk, for me to have conversations with people. I had a therapist who once said to me, if you want to just keep talking about your problems, go to the pub, get drunk. There'll be plenty of people, other drunk people, and everyone talk about their problems, and everyone leaves feeling worse, and no one gets anywhere. And he made a good point, talking only gets you so far. It's not how many words you say or what you say, how much you say, it's what you say. I would rather have a 5-minute conversation with someone that was meaningful, that was beneficial to me and to them, or a 5-minute phone call with someone that was beneficial to both parties, where we learn something, and that, rather than a 2-hour conversation. I've had 2-hour conversations sometimes, because I have a lot to say, and I want to get to a point where I have less to say, or at least less to talk about, but more meaning in what I'm saying. So in a sense, less to talk about, but more to say, because there's more meaning in it. And then I'm often have this habit of, I can really get a conversation flowing, so other people end up talking a lot to me. I'm quite a good conversationalist, I find. Well, it's not good for me, but it's good in the sense if your aim was to like keep conversations just going as long as possible, keep them flowing, keep them going, and talk about a large range of things, and everyone's kind of feeling good. But at the end of it, I, maybe as an introvert, just feel exhausted. I want to talk less to my wife, even talk less to my kids. I want to talk less to my mum. I want to talk less to everyone in my life. I want to talk less. Even on these videos, I want to talk less. I want to get to the point where I'm just vlogging. I'm just keeping a video journal of where I'm at, and where I'm at will hopefully get to a point where I'm talking less. I just want to video journal, like, I want to do a video next time where I'm feeling grounded, where I'm feeling how I said that I felt before, where I'd exhausted myself, but rather than exhaust myself in a rage, I want to do it because I realized I had the feeling that I needed after that rage to be able to talk to people, but it's very unhealthy and it's very destructive to get to that anesthetized state through rage. I want to get there through something healthy, something, an intense outlet of some sort, probably physical, whether it be adventures, roller coaster, just something intense, martial arts, whatever it is, mountaineering, something, And I want to get to a point where I'm vlogging that, and it's just like I can just be. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I could just be in a restaurant, hopefully get my financial situation sorted, and I could be just like, yeah, it's really good, and just be laid back about it rather than be like, oh, it has to be like this, blah, blah, blah. It gets to the point where I'm more relaxed and my voice is like deeper. It's high pitched right now because that's the frequency I'm at. I'm at a state of tension. If I was like totally relaxed now, you see, if I try to allow myself to relax a bit, then the voice gets a bit deeper. Also, I've been mouth breathing a lot because I've been lazy with shaving. So I haven't been able to use my mouth tape because the mouth tape I got won't stick with this facial hair. So hopefully going to shave off the beard today and then use the mouth tape tonight. Because when I breathe, a lot of mouth breathing just causes all sorts of problems. So for me anyway, I've been feeling better I was hoping that what would happen is I would use the tape a few times and then I would automatically start breathing through my nose, but it turns out I haven't done it long enough, so I've almost ran out of the tape. But yeah, as I was saying, getting to the point of just to be and vlog that, just being, vlog being in a meditative state, whether I'm eating a meal, whether I'm with my wife, whether I'm with my kids, whether I'm with my parents, whether I'm with my sisters, whether I'm with cats, wherever I'm with, it's no longer an obsession. It's no longer a brain that is almost like damaged, like a damaged psyche that's just sort of running a script from old traumas, from old wounds. It's like no longer running a script. No longer running a script. I feel kind of emotional a bit at the thought of that. To be no longer running a script. So there's the global matrix that we're all running in, a universal level of trying to get money and all of that. But then there's the running the script that you've been programmed from, the way you've been treated, from family, from school, from friends, from whoever, and then the way you've behaved. And you've got the guilt, anxiety, trauma, anger, and it's all firing. The brain is firing and it's doing its thing. I often think a lot of the time, like, this isn't me. The brain is just doing its thing. So then where am I? Where am I? I ask myself, like, where is Mark? Where am I? Where do I sit in this? Is there an I? An I don't know, it could be useful, I guess. Is it useful? I don't know. To have an I, to have a self, even if it's a false self. I think sometimes people who have not experienced any trauma, it's easier for them to uphold a mask. Sometimes people put on the mask because they've been traumatized. Sometimes I think people who haven't been traumatized, the systems are running smoother, the neurological systems, so maybe they can sustain a false self, sustain pretentiousness. Whereas, because so often when you've been traumatized, part of what you've been traumatized by is lies, is people being pretentious, people being fake, people conning you. So for you then to become a faker yourself, it's very hard to sustain as a traumatized person. Obviously, traumatized people do that. They do become fakers themselves, but I think they can often burn out and exhaust themselves. But people who haven't been through the trauma, in a way, they can sustain fakery. I've seen it with certain people who have not had any trauma. They can sustain fakery quite easily because there's them being fake. They don't even feel it as fake because they've never really been adversely affected by fakery, by people lying, by people abusing them. Because what surrounds trauma and abuse a lot of the time is a lot of dishonesty and distrust. Trust is abused and it's all dishonest because that's how people get away with abuse. They lie to other people. They lie to themselves to the point they end up believing their own lie. But if someone has not experienced that abuse, then they can sustain fakery. And I don't want that. You know, in some ways, that would just make me nauseous. I've seen people who had a smooth life. Their parents treated them very nicely. They were from a very stable background. And I've seen them be somewhat authentic at the beginning when I knew them, and then I kind of looked them up years later and I'll watch like a video of them on YouTube or something. I'm thinking, he's changed his voice, he's changed everything, but he hasn't changed it in a natural way. There's one guy I knew, I'm not going to say anymore, you know, I don't want to badmouth someone who may see the video, but basically he had a completely different voice. He had taken how other people speak that he was around, and he had started to speak like that. But it was so overdone. It was beyond the way they speak. And it just seemed, it seemed so pretentious, so fake. And I think when people sometimes don't have hardship, they don't know what it's like to go through trauma. They don't really become someone where anything really means anything to them. So they just neatly pocket into the matrix, neatly pocket into the system, and they're comfortable with fakery. But when you're traumatized, the whole system can seem poisonous. And your whole idea of anyone being dishonest or deceptive seems poisonous. But people who haven't been through that, sometimes seems that they can easily be deceptive if it suits them. They can easily lie. They can easily be fake because they just neatly pocket into the matrix because they haven't been so adversely affected by the cruelty from either their family or from society. They've lived a sheltered life. So I better wrap this up. But yeah, this is about, what am I going to title this video? talking less, talking less, I would say, and I'm going to title it Intense Physical Exertion and talking less.